The grand council chamber stretched out like a cathedral made of starlight and steel. Princess Velsara stood perfectly still in her ceremonial robes, watching the holographic displays that showed the death toll climbing. 3 years of war, 12 million Valorian lives lost, 20 million human casualties. And for what? Territory neither side truly needed, pride that had long since turned to ash. Her mother, Empress Kathlira, sat upon the high throne with shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of their entire civilization. The old warrior's face showed nothing, but Velsara knew better. She had seen her mother weep in private, had watched her stare at casualty reports until dawn broke over the capital city of Valtherin. Across the massive chamber, the human delegation sat in chairs that seemed too small for the gravity of the moment. They wore simple uniforms, dark blue with minimal decoration. No grand robes, no floating crowns of light, like the Valorian nobles wore. Just cloth and metal pins that meant nothing to Velsara's eye. The peace talks had been going in circles for 6 months. The Valorians demanded reparations for their superior technology being used against them. The humans demanded recognition that they had fought to a standstill, despite having older ships and fewer resources. Both sides refused to admit what everyone in the galaxy already knew. The war was over, not because anyone won, but because both sides were bleeding to death. "There is an old way," Velsara heard herself say. The words came out before she fully realized she was speaking. The entire chamber fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Her mother's expression flickered with something that might have been fear. "Velsara, no. The Treaty of Joined Blood," Velsara continued, stepping forward from her position among the other royal children. "It is ancient, but still recognized under Galactic Council law. A marriage between royal houses to seal peace. To make war between us the same as civil war. To make our peoples family." The human ambassador, an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes, leaned forward. "You're suggesting a political marriage between your people and ours?" "I am suggesting my marriage," Velsara said clearly. "I am third in line to the throne, old enough to make this choice, young enough that the Union could produce heirs if needed. I volunteer myself to marry a human of equivalent rank to stop this war." The chamber exploded into arguments. Valorian nobles shouted that it was beneath their dignity to mix with humans. Human diplomats argued that their people didn't practice arranged marriage anymore. But beneath the noise, Velsara saw her mother and the human ambassador lock eyes. Both leaders who woke up to casualty reports. Both rulers who knew that pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. It took 3 weeks to arrange the details. 3 weeks during which the fighting continued, and another 40,000 souls from both sides joined the dead. 3 weeks during which Velsara wondered what kind of human they would choose for her. She had seen human soldiers before, of course. Through gun camera footage and intelligence reports, they were terrifying in battle, screaming and fierce, and refusing to die even when logic said they should. Her people's military analysts called them berserkers and deathworlders, and warned that humans felt pain differently, feared death less, and fought with a desperation that bordered on insanity. So when they told her she would meet her assigned husband, Velsara prepared herself for some scarred warrior, who probably couldn't spell his own name, someone brutal and simple, someone she would have to endure for the sake of peace. Commander James Chen walked into the private meeting room and smiled at her with genuine warmth in his eyes. He was tall by human standards, but still shorter than her. His uniform was perfectly pressed, and he moved with careful, measured grace. His face was kind, actually kind, not the diplomatic mask she wore so often. When he bowed to her in the traditional Valorian way, the gesture was perfect. He had studied. "Your Highness," he said in flawless Valorian high speech, "I am honored to meet you. I hope we can make this arrangement work for both our peoples. Velsara stared at him. Where were the scars, the brutal demeanor, the savage warrior she had prepared herself to face? This man looked like he should be teaching philosophy or arranging flowers, not fighting wars. You speak my language, she said, somewhat stupidly. I studied linguistics before the war, James replied, switching to Common Galactic with the same ease. I find that understanding someone's words is the first step to understanding their heart. Over the next 2 hours, they talked. Actually talked, not the careful diplomatic dance she expected. James told her about his family, about his mother who grew orchids, and his father who built furniture. He asked about her interests, her studies, her hopes for the future. He was educated, well-read. He quoted Valorian poetry at one point, and apologized when he got the meter slightly wrong. I thought you would be different, Velsara admitted, as the meeting drew to a close. James's smile turned sad. You thought I'd be a brute, a savage. That's what your people think of humans, isn't it? That we're good at killing and not much else. Ah, yes, she admitted, feeling shame for the first time. We are good at war, James said quietly. Too good. That's why I agreed to this. I don't want to be good at war anymore. I want to be good at peace. I want to build something instead of destroying things. If marrying you can stop even one more soldier from dying, then I'll be the best husband I know how to be. The sincerity in his voice made something crack in Velsara's chest. This wasn't just politics for him either. He meant it. Will you make this a real marriage, she asked, or just for appearances? James looked at her directly. I'll make it as real as you want it to be. I won't force anything, but I won't halfway commit either. If we do this, I'm all in, whatever that means to you. The wedding took place 1 week later, on neutral ground, aboard a Galactic Council station, with representatives from 40 different species watching. Velsara wore white in the human tradition. James wore ceremonial robes in Valorian blue. They spoke vows in both languages and signed the treaty that officially ended the war. When James kissed her at the ceremony's end, it was gentle and brief and respectful. But Velsara felt something shift in the universe. Her life had changed forever. She was married to a human, and somehow, impossibly, she didn't feel the dread she expected. They boarded a transport to New Kyoto, a peaceful human colony world that would become their home. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, James took her hand and squeezed it gently. Thank you, he said, for being brave enough to do this. Velsara looked at their joined hands, her lavender skin against his brown. Different species, former enemies, now husband and wife. Thank you for being kind, she replied. The war was over. Her new life was beginning, and the man beside her seemed nothing like the monsters her people had described. Velsara let herself hope, just a little, that maybe peace was possible after all. 3 months had passed since Velsara arrived on New Kyoto, and she was still discovering new things about her husband every single day. The house James had prepared for them sat on a hillside, overlooking terraced rice fields that glowed golden in the afternoon sun. It was smaller than the smallest room in her family's palace, but somehow it felt more like home than anywhere she had ever lived. The walls were made of wood and paper screens that let the light filter through in soft patterns. There was a garden in the back, where James grew vegetables and flowers. Velsara stood in that garden now, watching her husband kneel in the dirt, with his hands working the soil around tomato plants. He hummed while he worked, some human melody she didn't recognize. There was dirt under his fingernails and a smudge on his cheek. He looked completely content. You don't have to do this yourself, she said, not for the first time. We could hire people. You married a princess. James looked up and smiled. I like doing it myself. There's something peaceful about growing things. Watching something you planted actually thrive and produce food. It's the opposite of, He trailed off, then shrugged. Besides, the tomatoes taste better when you grow them yourself. That was something Velsera had noticed. James would sometimes start sentences and not finish them, as if there were parts of his past he didn't want to examine too closely. She didn't push. They were still learning each other. She had learned that James woke up at dawn every day and practiced meditation in the garden, that he cooked breakfast and always made enough for both of them, even though Valorian biology meant she only needed to eat once a day. That he played violin in the evenings, old earth songs that made her chest feel tight with emotions she couldn't name. He taught at the local academy 3 days a week, instructing young humans in history and tactical theory. Velsera had sat in on one of his classes and watched him turn a dry discussion of battle logistics into a passionate examination of how to avoid war in the first place. The students loved him. They called him Professor Chen and stayed after class to ask questions. On his days off, James volunteered at the children's hospital in the nearby town. He would read stories to sick kids or play board games with them. Velsera went with him once and watched a 7-year-old human girl with no hair from her treatments climb into James's lap and fall asleep while he read to her. He had sat perfectly still for 90 minutes so she could rest. This was not the human warrior her people had feared. This was someone gentle, someone who chose peace in every action. "I made dinner," James called from inside the house one evening. "Come try this." Velsera walked into the kitchen to find him standing over the stove with that pleased expression he got when cooking went well. He had learned to modify human recipes for her biology, adjusting spices and proteins so she could eat safely. Tonight, he had made something called curry with vegetables from their garden. She took a bite and made an involuntary sound of pleasure. "This is incredible. Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My grandmother," James said, serving himself a portion and sitting across from her. "She said that feeding someone was how you showed love, that every meal was a chance to take care of the people who mattered to you." She sounds wise. She was. James's expression turned distant. She died during the war. Her colony was one of the early targets. Velsera put down her fork. They had avoided talking about the war carefully, dancing around it like a wound that hadn't healed. "James, I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Not your fault. You didn't fire the weapons. Besides, I'm sure you lost people too." "My brother," Velsera admitted quietly. "Talven. He was a pilot. His ship was destroyed in the Battle of Corvus Station." They sat in silence for a moment. Two people from opposite sides of a war, sharing grief over a meal. James reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was warm against hers. "I'm glad we stopped it," he said simply. "I'm glad no one else has to lose their brothers or grandmothers." That night, Velsera couldn't sleep. She heard James moving in the next room and found him standing on the porch, looking out at the stars. She had insisted on separate bedrooms when they first arrived. James had agreed immediately, never pushing, always respectful. "Can't sleep?" she asked, joining him. "Sometimes I have dreams," he admitted. "Nothing serious, just old memories that surface sometimes." "About the war?" "Yeah." Velsera watched his profile in the moonlight. 2 moons hung in the sky over New Kyoto, casting everything in silver and blue. "What did you do? During the war, I mean. You never talk about it." James was quiet for a long time. "I was a ship commander, fought in maybe a dozen major battles, did what I had to do to protect human lives." He turned to look at her. "But that person doesn't exist anymore. I left him behind when I married you. I'm just James now, the guy who grows tomatoes and burns dinner sometimes, and can't carry a tune to save his life." "You play violin beautifully." "That's different. That's reading music. Singing requires actual talent. His smile was gentle. I know this is so different from your life before. Velsera considered the question honestly. Her old life had been grand chambers and formal ceremonies and the weight of royal expectations. This life was simple, quiet, full of small moments like sharing meals and watching sunsets and listening to James hum while he worked in the garden. I think I'm happier than I've ever been, she admitted, surprising herself with the truth of it. James's whole face lit up. Yeah? Yeah. She stepped closer to him. They had been dancing around this for weeks now, the touches that lingered a bit longer, the way they found excuses to be near each other, the warmth that spread through her chest whenever he smiled. Can I kiss you? James asked softly. For real this time, not for a ceremony. Instead of answering, Velsera closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first. Then James's hand came up to cup her face, and she leaned into him, and it deepened into something that made her heart race. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I'm falling in love with you, James whispered. I didn't expect to. I thought this would just be duty. But you're amazing, Velsera. You're brilliant and brave, and you make me laugh, and I'm falling for you. I'm falling for you too, she admitted. I didn't want to. I tried not to, but you're so good, James. You're so kind and thoughtful, and you make me feel safe. They stood there under the twin moons, holding each other. Two former enemies who had somehow found love in the wreckage of war. That night, Velsera didn't go back to her separate bedroom. She fell asleep in James's arms, listening to his heartbeat, feeling more at peace than she ever had before. The war was truly over, for her now. This quiet life with this gentle man was everything she needed. James had put away whatever warrior he used to be, and become someone who built things instead of destroying them. She loved him for that choice, for choosing peace. She had no idea that the universe would soon force him to make a different choice, that the gentle gardener sleeping beside her had depths she couldn't imagine, that peace was something James chose every day, not because he couldn't fight, but because he was terrifyingly good at it. For now, Velsera simply slept, dreaming of tomatoes and violin music and a future full of quiet, beautiful moments. The alarm system shrieked through the house at 4 a.m, tearing Velsera from sleep. She jolted upright, confused and disoriented. Beside her, James was already moving. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, he had gone from peacefully sleeping to fully alert, his eyes sharp and focused in a way she had never seen before. What is that? Velsera asked, fumbling for her robe. James was already dressed, moving with quick, efficient motions that spoke of long practice. Orbital alert. Something's in the system that shouldn't be. He pulled up a display on his wristcom, and his jaw tightened. 6 ships. Crawl signatures. Velsera felt her blood go cold. The Crawl Ravagers were infamous across the galaxy. They were pirates who preyed on undefended worlds, taking whatever they wanted, and leaving destruction behind. They didn't show mercy. New Kyoto doesn't have defenses, she said, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. This is an agricultural world, a peaceful colony. There's nothing here worth. You're here, James interrupted quietly. A Valorian princess. You're worth more ransom than this entire planet's yearly production. The words hit her like a physical blow. This was her fault. Her presence had made New Kyoto a target. James was already moving toward the door. I need to get to town. Help coordinate the evacuation. I'm coming with you. Velsera, you need to hide. If they're here for you, I'm not hiding while innocent people are in danger because of me, she said firmly. I'm coming. Something flashed in James's eyes. Respect, maybe, or perhaps just resignation. He nodded once, and they ran together to the vehicle outside. The drive to town took 15 minutes that felt like hours. The sky was starting to lighten with dawn, but Velsara could see the ugly shapes of crawl ships descending through the atmosphere. They were built for intimidation, all spikes and dark metal and weapons bristling from every surface. The town's small command center was chaos when they arrived. The volunteer defense coordinator, a retired human officer named Sarah Martinez, was trying to organize civilian evacuations while simultaneously dealing with incoming transmissions from the Crawl fleet. "They're demanding tribute," Sarah said when she saw James. Her face was gray with stress. "Food, supplies, and the Valorian princess. They gave us 2 hours before they start bombarding population centers." Velsara stepped forward. "I'll go, if it saves lives." "No." James's voice was flat and hard. It was the first time Velsara had heard him sound like that. Like stone. Like something that couldn't be moved or broken. "That's not happening. James, if people die because I'm here." He turned to look at her, and Velsara actually took a step back. The gentleman she had fallen in love with was gone. In his place was someone cold and focused and absolutely certain. "They won't get you. I promise you that." Sarah cleared her throat. "Commander Chen, our defense consists of 2 patrol boats and about 40 volunteers with small arms. We can't fight 6 crawl warships." "No, you can't," James agreed. He turned to the tactical display showing the crawl ships in orbit. His eyes moved over it with an intensity that made Velsara's skin prickle. "What do we have in the orbital docks?" "Civilian transports, cargo haulers, and 1 old corvette that's been sitting there for 5 years. It barely runs." "Get me that corvette." Sarah stared at him. "James, that ship is 40 years old. Its weapon systems are outdated. Its shields are practically non-existent. You can't seriously." "Get me the corvette, Sarah. And I need a crew, 5 people who know how to follow orders and aren't afraid to die." The command center went silent. Everyone was looking at James now. Velsara saw something in their faces, recognition, as if they were seeing someone they used to know but hadn't seen in a long time. "You're going to fight them," Velsara whispered. 6 ships, alone." James looked at her, and for just a moment the hardness cracked. His hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite everything. "I love you," he said softly. "Stay here. Help coordinate the evacuations. Keep people safe. I'll handle this." "James, you can't," she began. He kissed her. It was brief and fierce and tasted like goodbye. Then he pulled back, and the cold warrior returned. "I can. Trust me." He was gone before she could argue, striding out of the command center, with Sarah hurrying after him. Velsara stood frozen, her mind racing. This didn't make sense. James was a teacher, a gardener, a man who played violin and read to sick children. He couldn't fight 6 warships. But the other people in the command center were moving now, energized by something. One of them pulled up James's military file on the main display, and Velsara found herself staring at it in disbelief. Commander James Chen, 47 confirmed capital ship kills. Survivor of the Siege of Titan, where his crew held off an entire fleet for 3 days. Architect of the Battle of the Helix Nebula, where he turned certain defeat into impossible victory. Recipient of the Star of Terra, the highest military honor humans could award. They called him the Ghost of Proxima. "Oh my God," Velsara breathed. "Who did I marry?" Sarah had returned, and she heard the question. "You married the best damn ship commander humanity ever produced," she said quietly, "and the man who swore he'd never fight again. He retired after the war ended. Said he was done with killing. I've never seen him touch a weapon since he moved here." "Then why?" "Because they threatened you," Sarah said simply. "And there are some lines you don't cross with humans. Threatening our families is one of them." On the tactical display, Velsara watched a small icon separate from New Kyoto's orbital docks. One tiny, outdated corvette, burning towards 6 massive crawl warships. It looked like suicide. It looked like madness. The crawl fleet commander's transmission came through on all channels, his voice full of cruel amusement. "Little human in your little ship, turn back. We will make your death quick if you surrender now." James's voice came back, and Velsara's breath caught. It was calm, almost gentle, the same tone he used when reading to children or talking about his tomato plants. "Negative. You came to my home. You threatened my wife. You don't get to leave." "Your wife?" The crawl commander laughed. "The Valorian princess? We will enjoy collecting her after we turn you to atoms. Any last words?" There was a pause. Then James spoke again, and his voice was still soft, but now it carried something that made Velsara's skin crawl. Not anger, not hatred, just absolute certainty. "Yes, I'm sorry." "Sorry? For what, human?" "For what I'm about to do to you." The transmission cut off. On the tactical display, Velsara watched the small icon representing James's ship accelerate toward the crawl fleet. 6 ships against 1. Sarah pulled up the external camera feeds. "You should watch this," she said quietly. "You should see who your husband really is." Velsara's hands gripped the edge of the console. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The man she loved was flying towards certain death, and all she could do was watch. The battle was about to begin, and Velsara was about to learn that the gentle gardener she had married was also something else, something that made even the crawl pause. He was a human, protecting what he loved, and there was nothing in the universe more dangerous than that. The first crawl ship died so quickly that Velsara almost missed it. She was watching the tactical display with her heart in her throat, watching the single small icon that represented James's corvette approach the massive crawl fleet. The enemy ships were arranged in a standard pirate formation, meant to intimidate and overwhelm. 6 warships, each one 10 times the size of James's ancient corvette. Then James's ship moved. It wasn't a normal acceleration. It was a violent, physics-defying burn that sent the corvette slicing through space at an angle that made no tactical sense. The crawl fired, their weapons lighting up the darkness with streams of plasma and missile trails. Every shot missed. James's ship twisted and rolled, moving through the weapons fire like water flowing around stones. He came up under the first crawl ship, so close that their shields were actually touching. Then he fired everything at point-blank range, directly into the warship's main reactor. The crawl ship exploded from the inside out, tearing itself apart in a bloom of fire and debris. 300 pirates died in an instant. The command center erupted in shocked exclamations. Sarah was gripping her console so hard her knuckles were white. "He used their own shield overlap," she whispered. "They couldn't fire on him without hitting each other. And he was too close for their point defense to track." On the tactical display, James's ship was already moving again. The remaining 5 crawl ships broke formation, tried to spread out and get clear firing solutions. But James wasn't where they expected him to be. He had used the explosion from the first ship as cover, and now he was diving toward New Kyoto's gravity well. "What's he doing?" Velsara demanded. "He's heading toward the planet. They'll have him trapped." "Watch," Sarah said quietly. The crawl gave chase, all 5 ships burning hard to catch the fleeing corvette. They fired everything they had. Missiles streaked after James's ship. Plasma cannons painted the sky. Kinetic rounds filled space with deadly metal. James dropped into the upper atmosphere of New Kyoto, using the planet's air resistance to slow down while his pursuers were still in vacuum. Then he pulled up hard, using a gravity assist to slingshot back up at a sharp angle. The crawl ships, moving too fast to adjust, overshot him. He came up behind the second ship and fired a spread of missiles that had been modified somehow. They didn't hit the ship directly. Instead, they detonated around it, creating a debris field that the crawl ship flew into at full speed. The warship's shields collapsed under the impact, and James's cannons tore through its exposed hull. 2 down, 4 to go. She was watching something that shouldn't be possible. One ship fighting 6 and winning. But it wasn't just winning. James was making it look easy. Every move was perfect. Every shot calculated. He was 3 steps ahead of everything the crawl did. He's not fighting them, one of the technicians said in awe. He's playing them, like a game he's already won. The third crawl ship tried to run. Its commander must have realized what was happening, must have understood that they weren't hunting a helpless colony. They had walked into a trap set by something they couldn't beat. James didn't let it leave. His Corvette burned hard, engines screaming with strain that should have torn the old ship apart. He came alongside the fleeing warship and did something Valsera had never seen in any battle recording. He matched velocities perfectly, flying in formation with the enemy ship, and then fired a sustained beam into the same spot on their hull for 10 seconds straight. The armor melted. The beam punched through and severed the ship's main power conduit. The warship went dark, tumbling through space without power or life support. He didn't destroy it, Valsera said, confused. He disabled it, Sarah corrected. Those pirates are still alive. They'll be rescued later. James just took them out of the fight without killing them if he didn't have to. 3 down, 3 remained. The last 3 crawl ships regrouped, finally working together like they should have from the start. They formed a defensive sphere and started cycling their fire patterns to eliminate any blind spots. It was smart tactics. It was what they should have done from the beginning. It didn't matter. James flew directly at them, making himself an obvious target. All 3 ships fired at once, concentrating their weapons on the single approaching corvette. At the last possible second, James's ship jinked sideways, and Valsera realized he had deployed something. Small objects scattered through space in his wake. The crawl weapons hit the objects, which exploded into clouds of reflective chaff. The crawl's own sensors went crazy, overwhelmed by false targets and electromagnetic interference. In the confusion, James slipped through their formation and came up inside their defensive sphere. Now they couldn't shoot at him without risking hitting each other. They broke formation again, trying to get clear. James picked the 4th ship and simply outflew it. He stayed on its tail, no matter how it turned or dodged, firing in controlled bursts that systematically destroyed its weapons, then its engines, then finally its bridge. 2 left. Sarah pulled up the external camera feed, and Valsera saw James's Corvette for the first time since the battle started. The ship was scarred and scorched. Parts of its hull were glowing red from heat. It should have been falling apart, but it kept flying, kept moving with that impossible precision. The 5th crawl ship tried to ram James in desperation, a suicide run meant to take them both out. James waited until the last possible instant, then rolled his ship in a corkscrew that took him over and around the enemy vessel. As he passed over its hull, he dropped his remaining missiles directly onto its surface. The explosion tore the crawl ship in half. 1 left. The final crawl flagship was the largest and most heavily armed. Its commander, the same one who had mocked James earlier, opened a transmission. His voice was no longer amused. It was terrified. "Stop. We surrender. We'll leave. Take your planet. Take your princess. We'll go." James's response was quiet, calm, the same voice he used when asking Valsera how she slept or if she wanted tea. "No. You came here to hurt people I care about. You threatened my wife. You don't get to walk away from that. Please, we're leaving. The contract is void. We won't come back." "I know you won't." The last ship tried to run, burning its engines so hard they must have been damaging themselves. It didn't matter. James's corvette, impossibly, was faster. He came up beside it and fired a single shot. Not at the hull, at the engine core directly. The flagship's reactor went critical. The crew had maybe 10 seconds to reach escape pods before the ship tore itself apart in a final, catastrophic explosion that lit up the night sky of New Kyoto. Then, it was over. James's battered corvette turned slowly and began limping back toward the orbital docks. The battle had lasted 17 minutes. 6 crawl warships had been destroyed or disabled. Hundreds of pirates were dead or drifting in escape pods, waiting to be arrested. One outdated human corvette had done it all. The command center was absolutely silent. Everyone was staring at the tactical display like they couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Velsara's hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. The man she had been living with, the gentle gardener who made her breakfast and played violin and read to children, had just fought like something out of mythology, like a god of war wearing human skin. "Is he hurt?" she managed to ask. "His ship is barely holding together, but life support is stable. He'll make it home. Home, to their little house on the hillside, to his garden and his violin and his peaceful life." Velsara couldn't reconcile it, couldn't make sense of how the same person could be both things. The transmission from James's ship came through. "Command, this is Chen, threat neutralized, requesting emergency services for enemy survivors. And someone tell my wife I'm okay. I'm coming home." His voice was tired now, so tired, and underneath it, Velsara heard something that broke her heart. Sadness. Not triumph, not pride, just deep, aching sadness. He hadn't wanted to do this. He had been forced back into being the thing he had tried so hard to leave behind. Velsara stood up on shaking legs. "I need to go to the docks. When he lands, I need to be there. I'll drive you." As they left the command center, Velsara heard the technicians pulling up more of James's military history. The battles he had won, the ships he had destroyed, the impossible victories that had made him a legend. She had married the Ghost of Proxima, a man who fought like a god, and she had never known. He had hidden it so completely, buried it so deeply under kindness and gentleness and peace. Now she understood why. The corvette landed hard at the orbital docks, its landing gear barely functioning. Emergency crews rushed forward with fire suppression equipment, but the ship's engines were already powering down. Smoke rose from a dozen hull breaches. The fact that it had made it back at all was a miracle. Velsara waited at the bottom of the ramp, her heart pounding. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. James appeared in the doorway, and Velsara felt her breath catch. He looked exhausted. His face was pale and drawn, with dark circles under his eyes. His uniform was stained with sweat and had a few burn marks from where something had sparked inside the damaged ship. But he was alive. He was whole. Their eyes met across the distance. James took a step down the ramp, then another. Then he was running, and Velsara was running too, and they collided in the middle with desperate intensity. "Are you hurt?" Velsara demanded, her hands running over him, checking for injuries. "I'm fine. I'm okay." James pulled back just enough to look at her face. "Are you safe? Did anyone get hurt in town?" "No. Everyone's safe. You saved them. You saved all of us." James's expression crumbled. He pulled her close again, burying his face in her shoulder. She felt him shaking, and realized with shock that he was crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears that he was trying to hide. "Let's go home," she said softly. "Come on, let's get you home." The drive back to their house was silent. James stared out the window at the dawn breaking over the terraced fields. His hands were steady on his knees, but Velsara could see the tension in every line of his body. When they got home, James walked straight through the house and out to the garden. He stood there, among his tomato plants, and just stared at them. Velsera followed, giving him space, but staying close. "I killed them," James said finally. His voice was hollow. 300 people, maybe more. I ended their lives in 17 minutes. They were pirates. They were going to hurt innocent people. I know. James knelt down and touched one of the tomato plants with trembling fingers. I know they deserved it. I know I did the right thing. But that doesn't make it feel any less terrible. I spent 3 years in the war, killing people. I'm so good at it, Velsera. I'm so good at death and destruction, and I hate it. I hate that part of myself. Velsera knelt beside him. Then why did you do it? Because they threatened you. He looked at her, and his eyes were full of pain. Because the thought of them taking you, hurting you, made something break inside my chest. I couldn't let it happen. I would have fought 1,000 ships if that's what it took to keep you safe. You retired, Velsera said, understanding flooding through her. You stopped fighting not because you were afraid, but because you were too good at it. I killed enough people during the war to populate a small city, James whispered. I did it to protect humanity, to keep my people safe. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, the ships exploding, the escape pods I couldn't save, the people who died because I outthought them, outfought them, destroyed them before they could destroy me. I'm a monster who looks like a man. No. Velsera took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. You're a man who can become a monster when he has to. There's a difference. A monster would have enjoyed that battle. A monster would be proud of what he did. You're sitting here crying over your tomato plants because you hate that you're good at killing. That's not a monster. That's someone with a soul. James leaned into her touch. I wanted to be different with you. I wanted to just be the good parts, the gentle parts. I wanted you to only see the man who grows things and reads to children. I see all of you now, Velsera said. The gardener and the warrior, the teacher and the ghost of Proxima. And I love all of you, James. I love you because you choose to be gentle, even though you could choose to be terrible. I love you because you protect what matters to you. I love you because you're crying right now instead of celebrating a victory. They sat there in the garden as the sun rose higher, holding each other while James processed what he had been forced to do. Eventually he wiped his eyes and took a shaky breath. I need you to understand something about humans, he said quietly. Something your people never really grasped during the war. Tell me. We don't love fighting. We're not warriors by nature. We're builders and creators and artists. But when something threatens what we love, we become something else. We fight like we're already dead, because we'd rather die than lose what matters. We don't have better technology or stronger bodies. We just refuse to give up. We fight dirty and desperate, and with everything we have, because the alternative is losing our families, our homes, our future. Velsera thought about the war, about how the Valorians had superior ships and weapons, but still couldn't win. About how human forces had held positions that should have fallen, won battles that should have been losses, survived when logic said they should all be dead. That's why the war ended in a stalemate, she said slowly. Not because you couldn't beat us, because we couldn't break you. You would have fought until every last human was dead, rather than surrender. Probably, James admitted. That's what makes us dangerous. Not our weapons. Our refusal to quit when protecting what we love. I think that's what scared your people most. You could destroy our ships, take our planets, kill millions of us, and we just kept coming back, kept adapting, kept fighting. And then they offered you peace through marriage, Velsera said. They offered you me. And I took it because I was so tired of fighting, James said. I wanted peace more than I wanted victory. I wanted to build something instead of destroying things. I wanted to grow tomatoes and learn your language, and maybe, if I was lucky, fall in love with you. You did fall in love with me. I did. James smiled, small and sad and genuine. Best decision I ever made, even if it means sometimes I have to become that other thing again to keep you safe. 3 days later, a transmission came from the Galactic Council. They wanted a report on human nature for their cultural archives. The war had ended, but they still didn't understand the people who had fought them to a draw. Velsera sat down to write the report, with James reading over her shoulder. She thought about everything she had learned, about the gentle man who made her breakfast, and the warrior who destroyed 6 ships in 17 minutes. About a species that chose peace, but fought like gods when they had to. She wrote, "Humans are gardeners and artists who become warriors when necessary. They are the most dangerous when they are the most gentle, because their gentleness is a choice, not a weakness. They do not love war, which is precisely why they are so good at it. They fight to end fights, destroy to protect creation, and kill so that others may live. They are worthy of respect, not fear, worthy of partnership, not domination. And if you threaten what they love, you will learn that there is nothing in the universe more terrifying than a human protecting their family." James read it over her shoulder and was quiet for a long moment. "That's very kind," he said finally, "but also very true. Should I send it?" "Send it. Maybe it will help people understand. We're not monsters. We're just stubborn and protective, and willing to do terrible things for good reasons." Velsara sent the report and then turned to her husband. "What now? Do you go back to teaching? Back to the garden?" "If they'll let me," James said. "I meant what I said. I'm done with war, but I'll always be ready to protect you, to protect our home. That's the bargain humans make with peace. We choose it, we nurture it, we build it every day. But if someone tries to take it from us, we remind them why peace is the better option." That evening, they worked in the garden together. James showed Velsera how to properly prune the tomato plants. They made dinner together, and James played violin while she read. It was peaceful, normal, as if the battle had never happened. But Velsera understood now. This peace was not passive, it was active. James chose it every day over the alternative. He chose gentleness over violence, creation over destruction, love over war. And if anyone ever threatened that choice again, they would learn what she had learned, that humans were most dangerous when they had something to protect, that the gardener and the warrior were the same person, that love made them gentle and also made them unstoppable. Velsera's marriage had been meant to stop a war. Instead, it had taught her the truth about the species her people had fought. They were partners who would stand beside you, build with you, love you fiercely, and heaven help anyone who threatened that. 6 months later, Velsera discovered she was pregnant. James cried happy tears and immediately started planning a nursery. The Valorian Empress sent gifts and blessings. The human coalition sent congratulations. Their child would be the first of a new generation, born from peace instead of war. In the garden, the tomatoes grew ripe and red under New Kyoto's sun. James sang softly while he worked, and Velsera sat nearby with her hand on her growing belly, watching the man she loved choose peace one more day. The war was truly over, the future was beginning, and it was beautiful.